We're breaking down the Buffalo Bills 2024 Day 3 draft picks today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, folks, welcome in. We are here to break down the rest of the Buffalo Bills Day 3 draft selections. So I already did an episode that covers Ray Davis, Sedrick Van Pran-Granger, and Edefuan Ulofoshio. If you're looking for analysis on those picks, it's in the episode before this one. Today, or on this episode, we're covering Javon Solomon, Tylan Grable, Daequan Hardy, and Travis Clayton. So that's what we're going to get into. And I want to talk about real quick this abundance of draft capital that Brandon Beane has accumulated for the 2025 NFL draft. So we're going to get to that as well in this discussion. But with 7 picks, that's too much for one episode. Had to break it into 2. And so thanks for continuing this journey on reacting to this draft class, breaking it down, really understanding the people that the Bills brought into their football team, and really excited for what's to come here as we now have an infusion of young talent. We can really consider what this roster is going to look like, what this scheme's going to look like, kind of the plan and the vision, right? So a lot of great conversations they're going to be coming throughout the coming days here as we really reflect on this draft class. But let's get into these 4 remaining selections. In the 5th round, pick 168, the Bills drafted Javon Solomon, edge rusher out of Troy. He's 23 years old. He turned 23 in January. He's a native of Tallahassee, Florida. In high school, he played football, of course, but he also wrestled, right? So you know that Sean McDermott likes his wrestlers. Found him one here in Javon Solomon. Was a 3-star recruit, and he chose Troy over comparable schools that the Sun Belt, those types of schools down there. At Troy, 53 games, 25 starts, had tons of production. One of the most productive college pass rushers really ever. 49.5 tackles for loss, 32.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, coming off his best season. In 2023, he had 18 tackles for loss and 16 sacks with 3 forced fumbles. Those 16 sacks led the country. He also had an 11-sack season in 2021. He's got a very interesting body composition, and that's something we'll talk about. So he's 6'1", 246 pounds, has 33 7/8 inch arms, 10 3/4 inch hands. So kind of a smaller edge rusher, kind of a player you would think more of for a 3-4 team. We'll get to that here in just a moment. Ran 4.72 in the 40-yard dash, an RAS score of a 7.29. So a sufficient athlete, certainly not like an elite caliber athlete. When you watch Javon Solomon, there's some things that stand out on tape. I think he's got a good first step, times the snap well, gets into his rush, comes out with low pads, like just very good leverage and first step quickness. And that helps him win reps. And then he is able to use that plus good flexibility. I'm not sure that this is like Brian Burns caliber bend, but he has good looseness throughout his frame to reduce his surface area and turn corners. And he also has good length. So there's a nice foundation here in terms of leverage, first step quickness, flexibility, and length. Those are very desirable traits for a pass rusher. He's also got good pass rush variety. There's a lot of different moves that he has in his bag to be able to get around blocks and get to the quarterback, which is evidenced by the sack production that I've already told you about. I also think that he has good hand power. So he's not a big player, and we'll talk about his functional strength here in just a moment, but he has good pop in his hands. And he's also a finisher. So when he gets a chance to beat a block and get to the quarterback, he's very good at turning pressure into sacks. So kind of a nice foundation to work with here in terms of first step quickness, flexibility, length, pass rush variety, hand power, and that finisher's mindset. That's all very good. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Joe, I mean, we're talking about a 6th-round pick here. Like, let's not ever state this. Or it's actually a 5th-round pick, so my apologies there. But, why was he he's got all the production. These are good traits. Well, he also has issues, right? He lacks mass and functional strength. He's 246 pounds. And that shows up on tape. I don't look at him and think much of him as a run defender. He's going to be able to get moved out of the way on run downs, especially if he's going to have to play over offensive tackles. He's also a player that has to win with technique and angles because he does lack mass and functional strength. So if opponents are able to get hands on him, he's going to get derailed from his rush pretty quickly. So he needs all that technique that I talked about to be effective because he does lack mass and he doesn't have great functional strength. And then, of course, the run defense, not really something that's going to get you excited. So my general feelings on this pick is if you look at my board, you'll notice that he's graded lower for me. And you should also know that my board is a Buffalo Bills specific draft board. Well, the Bills run a 4-3 defense. I thought of Javon Solomon as a 3-4 rush linebacker. And it's funny because Brandon Beane, when he had his end of draft press conference and talked about Javon Solomon, he said, look, we thought the 3-4 teams would be more into him. Well, me too, right? So that's why he didn't grade as high for me. But I think if you look at him through the lens of, okay, designated pass rusher, you can see how there's some appeal. Not an every down player, but on long and late downs, he certainly provides value. And if you're going to provide value and you're a limited player, be good at rushing the passer, right? That's a good thing to be good at. And if you're not going to be a versatile player. So he has that ability. So you look at him as this designated pass rusher on long and late downs, maybe some special teams ability as well, which I think we're going to see some of these bigger players on special teams with the new kickoff rule. I think you can look at him as a candidate to do that. But I also see a path for him to make the roster. You look at this defensive end situation, and the Bills have rostered 5-6 defensive ends at a time throughout the Beane McDermott era. And of course, you have Greg Rousseau, and you have Von Miller, and you have AJ Epinesa. That's 3. You have room for at least 1, if not 2, more players. So between Casey Toohill, Kingsley Jonathan, Javon Solomon, I think 2 guys probably make the team, barring, the Bills don't make a substantial signing or move at defensive end. I think there's a path for 2 of those guys to make the team. So it's going to come down to, well, all right, of those players, what type of versatility can you offer? And we know Toohill and Jonathan have already played special teams in the NFL. So it's going to be a fun battle. That's a cluster of players that deserve competition, right? Like they should not be walking into this team, Toohill, Kingsley Jonathan, with a very clear path. Like those are guys that need to earn it. And I think this is very good competition for that. And again, limited player, but the thing that he does well is quite valuable. Interesting fit, right? Like I mentioned, I think he's more of a cleaner projection to be a 3-4 rush linebacker, but as a designated pass rusher in this scheme, I can see how he could be an asset. All right, we're going to talk about Tylan Grable on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with me. Folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to be certain that you can find as many quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're not looking in the right place. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats right now and might not have the time or resources to hire. Well, LinkedIn is always thinking about that and trying to find reasons and opportunities and ways to make the process easier for you. In fact, they just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode of your favorite Locked On podcast is brought to you by the best meal kit service in the game, Home Chef. No more having to answer the dreaded question, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Thanks to Home Chef and their chef-designed recipes that are delivered directly to my door, all pre-packaged, pre-portioned. They even peel the garlic cloves for you. And each recipe, one of my favorites, blackened mahi, comes with a full page of easy-to-read instructions that include customization options and pictures to guide you along the way through the step-by-step process so you don't have to ask, is that what chard looks like? I cannot recommend Home Chef enough, especially right now, because for a limited time, Home Chef is giving Locked On listeners 18 free meals, free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box if you head to homechef.com/lockedon today. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Yes, you heard that right. Homechef.com/lockedon. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
All right, folks, I'm going to talk about two picks in this block, Tylan Grable and Daequan Hardy. Really excited to talk about Daequan Hardy. So 6th-round pick 204, the Bills selected Tylan Grable, an offensive tackle from UCF, which is Central Florida. He's 24 years old. He turns 25 in October. He's a native of Gordon, Georgia, and he played basketball and football in high school. But get this, he played quarterback. So he was a quarterback, a high school quarterback, and actually he planned on switching to tight end as a senior, but he broke his foot entering that season. So he winds up being a no-star recruit. His only offer to play college football was a Division II team, West Alabama. And so he chooses to walk on at Jacksonville State, and that's where he transitioned to tight end. And then in his second season at Jacksonville State, he moved to the offensive line. So he winds up being at Jacksonville State for 4 seasons. Then he transfers to UCF, where he played his final 2 seasons of college football. And for his total career, he played in 58 games with 43 starts, did have 27 starts at UCF. Every snap that he's taken in college has come at left tackle. And he allowed 0 sacks in 2023. So that's a fun fact about him. Obviously new to the position after playing quarterback, tight end, then offensive line. He's 6'5", 306 pounds, 33 5/8 on the arm length, 10 1/8 inch hands. He ran a 4.95 40-yard dash, has a relative athleticism score of a 9.78. So he's a big-time athlete here. Now here's the deal. I did not evaluate Tylan Grable. So I can't sit here and break down his game and tell you about what he does well, what he doesn't do well. So I need to watch his film, which I will do, and I'll share some thoughts on that once that happens this week. But I can give you a general feeling on the selection. Generally speaking, I like toolsy offensive linemen with developmental upside, especially when Aaron Kromer's your offensive line coach. And so we're talking about like 6th-round picks here. You want to take some swings here with some upside. And I certainly feel like that's what you get with the makeup of what I just discussed with Tylan Grable after researching him. And I think the Bills needed to invest in some offensive tackle. You have Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins, of course, as your starters. Spencer Brown entering a contract year. And the depth is Ryan Vandemark, Lyle Collins, and Tommy Doyle. I think it's fair to say there's questions about all 3 of those. Ryan Vandemark, like his trajectory as a player, hasn't really played, right? I mean, practice squad to reserve swing tackle, not having to really play very often. Good trajectory, young athletic player, but we haven't seen much of him. Lyle Collins, a guy that's played a fair amount of right tackle in the NFL, but he's been really banged up over the last few years. Didn't play at all last year. And then Tommy Doyle, who back-to-back years with an ACL tear. So, yeah, I think you needed to add a little bit of something here. And it feels like a reasonable swing to see if you have something. So, I couldn't tell you about his strengths and weaknesses, but I could tell you about his makeup and why the selection at least makes a level of sense to me. Now, a player I did watch that I really like is Daequan Hardy, who the Bills drafted in the 6th round, pick 219, cornerback out of Penn State. Daequan Hardy, 22 years old. He turns 23 in June. Native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And in high school, he played wide receiver, cornerback, and was also a returner, and was a big-time high school player. In 2018, his team won the 5A state championship. And in the title game, he scored 4 touchdowns. 2 were receiving touchdowns. 1 was a return, and 1 was an interception return. So 4 touchdowns. He also lettered in track, where he was a sprinter. 3-star recruit, had pretty much all the Big Ten schools offering him scholarships. He chose Penn State, where he played in 48 games with 5 starts. So not a lot of starting experience. He's a slot corner. So it was a sub-package player, but still collected 25 pass breakups and 5 interceptions. He's 5'9", 180 pounds, 30-inch arms, ran 4.38 in the 40-yard dash, 42.5-inch vertical jump. So explosive. When you watch him play and you think about his strengths, I love how competitive he is. Like, he's 5'9", 180 pounds with 30-inch arms, but he plays bigger than that. He's a very assertive tackler, is always willing to find the football and compete to get there, and never backs away from opportunities to make a tackle. He hunts the ball. Very easy movement skills. You can see that quick twitch athleticism show up in how he can mirror and match and carry routes. I think he's a fairly instinctive player. My favorite thing about Daequan Hardy, though, in terms of projection to the Bills, is that in 2023, he got a chance to be the punt returner for Penn State, and he aced the test. Had 17 punt returns for 248 yards. That's an average of over 14 yards per return. He also had 2 punt return touchdowns his first year of doing it in college. He also had 10 fair catches, and he did not muff the ball. So he fielded 27 punts, no muffs. Now, obviously, you wish the resume was a little bit more robust than that, but I like that in the opportunity that he had, he took care of the football and had some explosive returns. I think that's where he can help the Bills. The Bills don't have a punt returner. I guess Khalil Shakir, I get Daequan Hardy's in the mix. Keon Coleman maybe in the mix. It's nice to kind of start looking at this and feel like you have some options. And of course, with the new kickoff rule, yeah, a guy with 4.3 speed, let's go, right? You'd love to have that. When it comes to growth areas and concerns for Daequan Hardy, I mean, he's just small, right? He's 180 pounds, 5'9", 30-inch arms. And because of those things, he just has a small margin for error, right? He doesn't have the length and size, so if he's not on schedule with his pursuit, then he's going to have some missed tackles. If he's not right there, he doesn't have the margin for error in terms of getting into the catch point and breaking up the ball, right? He has to be technically sound all the time because he doesn't have the size or the length to overcome a lot of mistakes. So I know I talked a lot of very favorable things about the player, but that size, that lack of size is real, and you're concerned about what that means as a tackler, what that means at the catch point. My general feeling on this pick, though, is I like it a lot. I mean, we're talking pick 219. You see a clear path to being a returner for this team, which is something you need, and especially a punt returner. And then we've been talking about depth behind Taron Johnson in the slot. It's nice to have kind of an option here in Daequan Hardy that has a level of appeal with some upside and some athleticism and, like good ball production for a sub-package player at Penn State. I like this pick quite a bit. All right, folks, on the other side of it, I want to talk about Travis Clayton, the Bills' last pick that they made. He's very interesting. And then Brandon Beane made some trades and he's suddenly very loaded with 2025 draft capital. Want to talk about that as well. So be sure to stick with me. Folks, I've been told that I'm a competitive person. You think that's true? Well, yeah, I have a competitive side to me. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself, and their leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people from all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, next up is the Bills' last pick. Round 7, pick 221. Travis Clayton, offensive lineman from the International Pathway Program. Interesting situation here. He's 23 years old, tons of size and athleticism. 6'7", 303 pounds, 35-inch arms, 10-inch hands, ran a 4.79 40-yard dash. Here's the deal, though. He's never played football. He played rugby. He's from England. He played rugby, has a background in boxing and tennis as well. But he's never played football. This is very much like the Christian Wade situation. This dynamic rugby player is part of the International Pathway Program, and now, he's with the Bills. Now, here's the deal. The International Pathway Program is different now. So, according to Sal Capaccio, he says, the International Pathway Program is different. It's different than when Christian Wade took part. 15 players are chosen eligible to be drafted. They can then fill a 17th practice squad spot if the team chooses. So by selecting Travis Clayton, the Bills now have the opportunity to have 17 practice squad players as opposed to 16. So they get a little bonus there. He also doesn't, and my understanding is he doesn't count against the 90-man roster either. So more opportunity, all right? Just like we talked about with Christian Wade. He's there, but he doesn't actually count against things. So this is obviously a project. There's no doubt about it. This guy's never played football, but he has size and athleticism. And you've seen this kind of happen, right? Like Jordan Mailata from the Philadelphia Eagles, who's one of the best left tackles in the game, kind of this type of background. This is intriguing. So their ceiling here, throw a dart, right? I mean, these are the types of projects that the 7th round is for. So I can't tell you anything about his football. Nobody can because there's no tape to watch. He's never played it. But, Aaron Cromer gets his hands on a piece of moldable clay here, big-time athlete. We'll see what happens. It'll be kind of a fun storyline to monitor throughout camp and preseason for the next couple of years, and you see what happens. So I mentioned that the Bills are loaded with 2025 draft picks, and that's true. Brandon Beane made, I think, 3 trades in this draft, made one on day 3. He actually traded away pick 144 to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick in 2025. So he traded a 5th-round pick for a 4th-round pick, right? So when you do that in the NFL, you saw a couple of trades like this. The Dolphins did this. The Dolphins traded a 3rd-round pick in 2025 for a 4th-round pick in 2024. So the Bills were on the other side of that. They send pick 144, which I'm pretty sure is a 5th-round pick, and they get the Bears' 4th-round pick next year. A pick that I would assume is probably around pick 115. You think about the first 3 rounds being around 100 picks. I think the Bears will be picking in the top half of the 4th round. So you're talking about trading 144 for in a future year. Fast forward, 115. You probably moved up every bit of 30 spots. So I like that deal. But this also speaks to the draft capital that the Bills have in 2025. They're pretty well loaded. This is what they have right now. They have their own 1st-round pick. They have their own 2nd-round pick and the Vikings 2nd-round pick. So we are not Vikings fans this year, folks. We want them to lose all the games possible so that pick is as high as possible. They have a 3rd-round pick. They have 2 4th-round picks, their own and the Chicago Bears. They have 2 6th-round picks, their own and the Giants for the Boogie Basham trade. They're also scheduled to get a 4th and 5th-round compensatory pick, a 4 for Gabe Davis, a 5 for Leonard Floyd, and maybe even a 6 for Tim Settle or Dane Jackson. Now, they don't have their 5th-round pick because that goes to Houston in the Diggs trade. The Bills' 7th-round pick goes to the Giants in the Basham trade. But the Bills are staring at, if the 4, 5, and 6 compensatory picks come through, 11 picks, including a 1, 2 2s, a 3, 3 4s, a 5, and 3 6s. Healthy, right? So the Bills are like amid a roster reset, obviously. You just drafted 10 players. You're staring at 11 picks next year. That's good. It's very good as this new nucleus is establishing itself. And you look at the team, there's plenty of good young talent. Cyrus Torrance, Spencer Brown, Dalton Kincaid, James Cook. See what happens with Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Ed Oliver, Epinesa, Rousseau, Bernard, Benford, like Cole Bishop, now part of this mix. You feel kind of good about the assets that are there through the draft to build up this new roster that helps write the next chapter of the Josh Allen era of Buffalo. Now, the other side of this is Beane's loaded with draft picks. Well, what else can he do with it? Well, he can make a trade, right? So he's got plenty of ammunition, whether that's now or in the coming weeks, right? The Bills are going to get some cap space in June for the Trey White release. So if there's a veteran that becomes available, it feels like they have the draft capital to make a deal, but also in season if they want to make a trade. They lose a key player and they want to trade for somebody, they'll have the ammunition to do that. So a lot of flexibility in the form of draft capital for Brandon Beane, Brandon Beane next year. All right, folks, that's it. That's all for recapping the immediate reaction to the 2024 NFL Draft. Plenty of more discussion to come. We're a daily podcast all year long. So we're going to have a lot of conversations this coming week that are big picture, really kind of getting into the weeds with this class, what it means for the future of the offense, for the future of the defense, veterans, all of that. There's so much more to unpack, but I hope you, after these 3 episodes, or I guess is it 4? I don't know how many episodes it is, right? We did a lot talking about this draft class that you kind of know who these players are, and that sets the stage for our big picture conversations that are coming this week. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you are subscribed. We would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.